Thanks so much. It's a little bit of trepidation after these great talks and great sessions. I want to give kudos to everybody that I sort of have the last session of this, last talk of this session, especially when I stand between you and lunch. It's always a little bit of a dubious honor to be up here, so that I, as well as everybody else, was a little bit not understanding of why they asked me to do this talk, and then I realized it was probably because I have probably made the most mistakes when it comes to innovation and dealing with companies over the time, and my suspicions, unfortunately, were confirmed when I did the research to do this talk and understanding how to deal with companies. So I've learned some things the hard way, which I'm going to talk to you about. So just to give you an idea in terms of who I am, because the question is, why are you an innovator? Why do you do these things? And so that I developed an interest in some of this stuff, mostly because some of my training over the years, and I got to work with guys like Peter Fowler, Christian Gerber, and Frank Jobe, who had a background of sort of thinking about better ways to do different things, and they've all come up with different types of operations, and mainly because of their interest in improving patient health care and improving the environment of what we do the things in. So that, why do we have an interest in innovating and consulting and working with industry? And I think that, I think we'd all like to say that it's to really improve and advance patient care, which deep down I think that we all do. Some of it is because we have a curiosity and want to change the paradigm about what we do things. But you heard from this session that medicine is also a business, and we'd like to augment our income by our practice activities. And so in reality, it's a little bit of all of them when you consider this. So that we tend to do it a little bit blindly. And what I'm going to try and talk to you a little bit about in this talk is how we undervalue our contributions, so that you really should be doing this for the right reasons, like we talked about, but don't undervalue the amount of things that you can actually apply to this thing. So what kind of innovations are there? And we usually are involved in the first two there in terms of either a product or a service that our companies that we get involved with provide, or a process of doing things. And you've seen a little bit about that in terms of the data analytics and some of the process improvements we have. Don't underestimate, though, because they get a lot of information from us. You've probably gotten the $15 Amazon gift card to give them a lot of information about marketing, their organizational or business processes, so that you've given them $15, which probably made them hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of improving their process from a marketing and business standpoint. So these are the kind of things that we can be involved with over time. So what we need to understand really is the incremental versus the transformational change that can occur with these kind of things, because there's the curve on the right, top right corner there. It talks about sort of the high technology changes and then the high market impact, so that most companies live in that incremental category right down in the bottom corner there, which is more sustainable type stuff, and it's small changes that they make over time. The big game changer things, the breakthroughs and the disruptive type of things, sometimes they never come to market, and it depends on the companies, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. But there's different types of sustaining innovations and disruptive innovations. So if you think about cameras and Kodak for many years, pictures and photo albums and all that kind of stuff disappeared with the advent of iPhones, and that's a very disruptive innovation, so that's a game-changing type of device. But on the other end of things, of disruptive innovation is, we had cars, we had people that drove cars, we had people that needed rides in cars, and all we needed to do was just add an app, and then all of a sudden Uber and Lyft are changing the market. So there's very different types of incremental and transformational changes which occur, and you need to understand what you're doing. So that there's nothing really in our medical literature to sort of describe these incremental versus disruptive technologies, and this is a good review in the Business Harvard review by Joe Bauer, and he talks about these big revolutionary disruptive changes. And believe it or not, you think that you think, hey, I have a really cool idea that I can think disrupts the markets. The big companies don't necessarily always love that. They can sometimes see that as unattractive, because you see maybe the profit margins are not as sufficient, or it takes away some of their profit margins that they're looking for. So that sometimes that new technology will tend to get ignored, and they find different ways to do that, and it becomes much more difficult to bring that innovation to market unless you choose the right pathway. So once that disruptive technology is determined then, and it becomes established, then they become more interested because they see it as a potential market issue. So that this is what they call the innovator's dilemma, where they go on, they're sustaining innovation, and then there's a new one that comes along, and they have to make a decision when to take it over or when to apply it to it. So that there's a lot of lessons to be learned with this, so that it's much more expensive to do stuff which is disruptive as opposed to the incremental changes which they usually do. There's a few things that I'd like to talk to you about in terms of some of the lessons that I do, because the companies will ignore your technology. They'll take advice from recognized experts who get paid to sort of do this kind of stuff, and they're paid to sort of tell them what they think about the technology and whether it's good. So there's a value to persistence. So this is one of the things that you should understand. This is a guy by the name of Albert Einstein, which you all know, except there was a guy by the name of Henri Poincaré who actually came up with the theory of relativity before Einstein, but everybody else ignored him because he didn't have persistence, and because he adhered to the big group, he sort of decided not to do it. So the persistence is important. Here's some of the experts, like our experts, who tell them, you know what, that idea is not so good. So that if you look at the founder of IBM, I think there's a market for about 5 computers in the whole world. Digital Corporation, there's a reason anyone would want a computer at their home? I don't think so. They put a Mac in this thing. Who would want a computer in their pocket? The founder of BlackBerry. And even Bill Gates thought that 640K would be enough for all of us to use. So you see, this is a very prime example, and this is the orthopedic disruptive thinking. Years ago, we all thought that Mark Frankel was crazy. And sure enough, here we are all doing what Mark Frankel was proposing years ago. So you need to understand the types of industry involvement that you're with. There's consulting contracts. Usually they're looking for the 4 Ps, very productive people who are published, who have poise, and are very popular. So you see all this group up here. They like to interfere with those. You need to understand your hospital employment and what it means in terms of your system, in terms of your contracts and who owns what and whether your hospital owns it. And for the disruptive technology, it's very difficult. You need the teamwork like we talked about. You need to put together a lot of people because you don't understand all this stuff. So that engineers, patent experts are very important as you go forward. And so that you need to execute, manage, raise the monies, go out and provide this into the community so that you can sell your idea out there. So it's important to understand all of this. So in summary then, I guess that the innovation and consulting are different entities, but both can be rewarding and enhance your personal and professional satisfaction. Disruptive innovation is good, but protect your IP. Don't be greedy. And don't underestimate yourself in terms of your IP value. Thank you.